Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with a poppy and cottage garden seedling tour. First of all, cheers to the fact that I am home. I have been traveling for about 3 weeks with very little time here, and I have a few days that I'll be able to really get to work in the garden and get some projects done. Obviously, you can see it's incredibly warm. It is March 5th today. And nope, the garden has never looked like this on March 5th. I mean, even the centipede turf is breaking dormancy. So I'm just gonna say from the beginning, this is uncharted territory for me. Usually my cottage garden is magnificent in the middle of May, which is why I planned the spring open garden for Saturday, May 13th. At this stage, I think it's just a matter of weeks or days before some of the cottage garden plants start to bloom. So this includes poppies, larkspur, nigella, bachelor buttons, grains, which I can't even believe how many grains are already like going to flower. Usually my grains aren't really blooming until at least late April, and I'm not usually harvesting them until the middle of June. I have some grains in containers that are already like what they would look like in May. So again, 2023 is full of climate surprises. I don't have great advice on any of this, because if we get cold, I don't really know what to do. Just gonna roll with it, and you know, it's all a learning experience for all of us together. So without further ado, let me turn the camera around so I can show you how advanced all of my cottage garden seedlings are here in central North Carolina's Zone 7. Well, we'll start right here at the feed tank, and you can see that the barley is really tall. It's not flowering here, that's good news. The crimson clover is looking good. It has been getting munched on. The deer have been coming back in and eating it. And it's really funny how you see how they've been nibbling here, but then they totally leave the larkspur alone. So remember, the larkspur is poisonous. Deer don't like to eat that. Again, the larkspur is definitely way ahead of schedule. I mean, you can see this is bolting. Flower buds are starting to form. And yeah. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Everything's early. Let's put it that way. Now over into this bed, you can see I've got Papaver somniferum here and Eschscholzia. That's this right here. Let me get this back to 1. And alongside that, buckwheat is starting to germinate. So really early. I've never had buckwheat self-sow. That means the soil temperature is way above average. Of course, cilantro is growing well. And you know, these poppies have some great size on them. Over here, this is super crazy. Gladiolus are popping up. And this is that grain, Job's tears. I mean, this is definitely an indication the soil temperature is like summertime. It's again, it's March 5th. I just don't have words to explain my shock and dismay at seeing this. Wait till you see out front, I've got sunflowers. It's absurd. So it's not unusual for containers to be more advanced than in the ground, because that soil heats up warmer. But again, this is what I would expect in the middle to end of April, not the beginning of March. So the tulips are in bloom. The Papaver somniferums have gotten really large. The lettuce is looking great. The peas, you know, I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. I'm kind of sad that I don't have any garden tours scheduled. I have like 20 garden tours in May. I don't even know what the garden will look like in May, when all of the cottage garden plants are looking like this so early. I mean, look at this larkspur. You can see the buds right here. And you know, these poppies have doubled in size since last week. Thankfully, they're not blooming yet. Really impressive California poppy here. Nice size on that. I'm relieved that nothing's actually in bloom, but I do think that a lot of this stuff is going to be flowering way before its usual time. So usually I recommend sowing seeds after Thanksgiving before New Year's. And this year, the holiday freeze did a lot of damage to the seedlings that were sown during that time. So behind me here are seedlings that I sowed in early January. And they are at the stage that they should be for a May display. Let me give you a close-up view. All right, so you can see here, we've got some California poppies, a Schultzia, and also Papaver somniferum. Crazy enough, the Kufia is starting to break dormancy and start to grow. But this is the size they should be. Now, people always ask about thinning. You don't need to fight the urge. Just leave them be. I promise you, these plants have the capacity to figure out how to grow with this kind of spacing. I did an experiment last year where I thinned an area and it made no difference whatsoever. So I'm just telling you right now, you don't need to waste your time. Ideally, you will plant them with maybe a little less density than this. This is really tight, whereas like over here, you could see there's a little more space between the plants, and that's really ideal spacing. But either way, no point in thinning them out. So I can't believe that the grains are starting to flower already, but they are. So this is rye in a pot. So it's definitely more advanced. Remember, containers will usually be ahead of in the ground, and you can see the rye seed heads have started to form. Now, I noticed this sunflower a few weeks ago and I really freaked out. And these are self-sown, okay? I did not put sunflower seeds in the ground in February so that I'd have them growing in March. That's craziness. I also wouldn't plant a sunflower this close to the sidewalk because it's also dumb. But look at how big it is. Look at that. Now, when I came out this morning, I got home at like midnight last night. So I came out this morning, I was like, oh my God. There is a lot of buckwheat growing in here. So buckwheat are these kind of like rounded-ish leaves. You see, it's just coming up everywhere. And you see the cottage garden plants, like the bachelor buttons, have buds on them. Everything is bolting. The fava beans are starting to flower, which is pretty exciting. This has been an experiment. I think I seeded these in August, and they've overwintered. I don't think they would over summer in this climate, but they've obviously been cold hardy this winter because it hasn't been exceptionally cold. OMG. It's the first petals that are actually exposed on this bachelor button. Wow. Wow. So I wanted to show you some other, you can see large poppies here. Remember, this entire bed was self-sown. I didn't actually plant any of this. This all just came back from last year. And that includes the sunflowers that are all germinating, that I thought I did a better job collecting my sunflower seeds. But you can see that's a sunflower right here. Here's another sunflower, another sunflower, another one. I mean, I definitely have never had sunflowers and poppies at the same time. So this is just, again, I'm just going to sound, I know I sound like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. I'm just in shock. I'm in shock at what is going on in the garden this year. It's going to make me rethink everything. Well, I suspected this would be the case, that the rye would bloom way before the oats. And that's exactly what is happening. Now, this rye isn't as advanced as the one in the pot, but you can see there are there are seed heads starting to form. That's this right here. You know, this grew like a foot while I was in Michigan for the West Michigan Home and Garden Show. So as we walk over here to the Carolina Garden House into the big native shrub borders, remember this one we didn't do any seeding in. Well, that's not true. We did a little bit of seeding just along this other edge here. You see all the daffodils that I planted in December are starting to flower. They're so beautiful. And this was our very last poppy seed packet. And you can see good germination there, kind of all along this kind of half. Now this bed we didn't mulch for the reason that we had put a lot of seeds in, and there is great seed coverage. Now, unfortunately, deer have been coming through and breaking quite a few of the shrubs, which is a pretty big concern. I'm probably going to put some cattle panels around this to try and redirect them. But you can see we focused a lot of the seed right along the edges. And this was the Cottage Garden mix that I sold in the fall at in-person events only. And in that mix, there were poppies, there was cilantro, there was some grains, there were bachelor buttons, there was some crimson clover. And it really, all of this is looking quite nice. Great poppy germination, by the way. See those? And these are at the stage where I'm confident they're gonna look good in May. So that's good, because this is actually where the plant sale and big open garden tent will be, in the middle of this yard. And I really wanted this border to look good. Like, I'm quite concerned that the big cottage garden at my house that we live at will be finished by the time the open garden comes. But this bed, I think, will be in full swing. It'll look really good, and it'll be a great example of incorporating cottage garden seeds with native plants, which is totally the goal. Try to really think outside of what's been done before and give people some new inspiration. You can see really great coverage here with poppies. Really, this is going to be exquisite. And again, I'm not going to thin these at all. This is totally fine. We're going to let these fight it out, and we will have a great bloom set here. I'm very encouraged to see this. I'm happy to see poppies that look like this on March 5th versus what I'm about to show you in my yard. And here in the pocket perennial garden, I did a seeding in here a bit earlier, and it was pretty amazing. These plants did not get damaged by the holiday freeze. And you could see that's just basically this nice ground cover. So California poppies, Reese poppies. I think that's primarily what I sowed in this bed. These might be Papaver somniferum. I didn't make a video of it, and that's actually a huge problem because now I don't have a reference to go back and check the date. And so I make these videos, hopefully they're helpful to you. They are very helpful to me just to keep me on track. These are definitely Reese poppies though that I'm seeing here, because you see they have more of a sort of scalloped edge, and their leaf is has more of a pubescence on it. So they look distinctly different as they mature compared to Papaver somniferum. And here's a good example just to show you the difference. This is Nigella. So once it matures, and you see this is bolting, this will be blooming not too long from now. Now in contrast, okay, so here's Nigella, here is Larkspur. And they're both, feathery leafed, but they definitely have a distinct difference in their foliage. This is more, it's cut leaf, but it's more in a round or a rounded orientation, whereas this is more elongated. So Nigella, Larkspur. Now this pot pretty much just blew my mind. I can't believe that it's at this stage. This is wheat, and no, never have I ever had wheat that looked like this in early March. This is in a container, so you can understand that, you know, it's a bit more advanced, but this is way more than a bit more advanced. Again, this is usually what it looks like, honestly, like in the middle of May. Definitely not the first week of March. Okay, so there's my little messy area. Don't judge, everybody's got one. These are the poppies that Abby and I sowed back in January, and you can see great. They're doing really great. Again, not going to thin these, just leave them be. These are in bags of soil cube compost. We just poked holes in them. And those two big ones here, these were actually self-sown. So this is a bag that I've been growing directly in for several years. All of these are the seedlings that, or the seed that Abby and I sowed. You can see another bag here. And here we've got grains. I did rye, barley, and wheat. I don't remember the orientation now. And we also did poppies in the bottom. So they're definitely getting crowded out by the grains, but I wanted to do this as an experiment because I haven't had good success getting poppies and grains to grow together in my wave bed, but obviously the grains do not release any sort of poison to prevent the poppies from germinating and growing. Now in this pot, I obviously had a potato in it from last season, so it is growing. And these two look good as well. And again, those poppies are in there. They're definitely not getting the light they really need. So this isn't the best, most logical combination, but I wanted to do it just to see how it would be. Now along this fence area, this section that you see all the green is what we did in the November 12th seed class that I hosted. And everything that we sowed is growing very quickly. First, you can see the elephant garlic, and then these are mostly Reese poppies here. Again, you can really see that scallop leaf, and they kind of have these distinct hairs that are very difficult to capture on my camera. And we've got wheat there. We've got some larkspur mixed in, some bachelor buttons here. And though these are a bit more advanced, I think these will be more on track for blooming at the right season. You see, these larkspur are definitely not so big that they're already setting buds. Now, obviously, this is an area where I weeded really heavily, and then I found some calendula seeds that I had stashed in my refrigerator, and those are germinating now, and that is what this is. All of this is calendula. And again, calendula is a great plant for kind of this intermediate period. It doesn't live really through the heat of the summer. It doesn't live through the cold of the winter. Not that we really had winter this year, but it's a great plant to grow right now at this time where it's pretty mild. We're still getting into like the 40s at night, and that's precisely the kind of weather that calendula wants to have. Now this is the section that we sowed in the November 19th seed class. And again, everything is doing great. This is more Papaver somniferum, not Papaver Reese. So you can see the foliage is more of a seafoam green, and it's not as dissected as the Papaver Reese is. And this is all larkspur. Now this is actually, I think, real Delphinium. We sowed a package of like Pacific Giant Delphinium just to see how it would do. I haven't had a lot of success with it, but if this turns out to be that, I would be pretty doggone excited. I won't know until it blooms because I do have a lot of larkspur that just self-sow, and I can't tell the difference. But what I'm thinking is this smaller is the regular larkspur, and you see how large this leaf is? I think this might be actual Delphinium, but time will tell. I'll keep you updated. Now, I know I've said this before, but when in doubt, put your seeds in your walkway and they'll grow. This walkway is primarily larkspur, poppies, and carrots. Carrots are a really great addition to the cottage garden mix. They are biennial, so I have them at all different stages in this garden because they've been self-sowing for about a decade for me. And then over here, this section of the garden, I'm feeling good about this, at least this where the seedlings are small, looking nice for the spring open house. Now, you see where the seedlings get taller, those might be bloomed out by the time the middle of May rolls around. And that's a mix of larkspur and nigella. And again, you know, it's helpful when you have all of these things growing right next to each other. This is larkspur, this is nigella. And at the base of that are some poppies that I sowed late. I did these in, I think, the first week of January. So earlier in the tour, I alluded about being concerned about how advanced some of the poppies are in my garden, and these are all self-sown. Okay, so these germinated much, much earlier than I would ever recommend sowing them. But you can see this patch that has planted itself in the walkway naturally. You know, I've been watching this for several weeks. You see they already have stems. I don't see flower buds yet, but it's coming. You know, they are way ahead of schedule. And same thing goes for all of the self-sown poppies back here in this pathway, which is also full of vetch. I have not weeded it, but you can see how absolutely enormous these are. So this is a perfect example of being able to show you poppies that I sowed looking good. This is the right stage, remember, no thinning, versus self-sown poppies all through here, how much bigger they are. This is what I would expect to see around the middle of April. So they're definitely really like 7 weeks ahead, but they're not all ahead. Like the ones I sowed later, so I think I did these around December 22nd. All of these are looking good. And I think that this is just going to be a really great learning experience that I'll be able to share with all of you to kind of better understand the process. I think for years I've just taken for granted that how I learned to do it was the way to do it, and I didn't really have to question why. And now the weather is making me question everything. So again, really large self-sown Papaver somniferum versus seed that I intentionally sowed December 22nd. Well, I hope this tour of my cottage garden seedlings and specifically poppies will be useful for all of you so you can compare what your plants look like to mine. And well, I'm sending you guys all the very best. I hope that your climates are kind to you, and I look forward to sharing more updates soon. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.